Hello students, I welcome you all for my today's class. So today we are going to discuss on a topic amenorrhea. Yes, amenorrhea. So coming to its definition, amenorrhea. The definition of amenorrhea is amenorrhea literally means the absence of menstruation. Amenorrhea means the absence of menstruation. It is a symptom and not a disease. It is a symptom of many other diseases. It itself is not a disease, it is a symptom. There are at least 5 basic factors involved in the onset and continuation of the normal menstruation. Those are: number 1, the normal female chromosomal pattern, which is 46XX, means a female should be X chromosome, the genetically female only. This is the one criteria for the normal menstruation or menstrual cycles to occur. Another one is the coordinated HPO axis, hypothalamo pituitary ovarian axis should be coordinated. Then third is the anatomical presence and patency of the outflow tract. Anatomical presence means all the organs, reproductive organs should be present normally: uterus, fallopian tube, cervix, vagina, etc. And the patency also should be there. There should not be any block, atresia, etc. Then responsive endometrium. Endometrium should be responsive to the hormones. Then last point or fifth point is the active support of the thyroid and the adrenal glands also. Other endocrine glands plays also a very important role in the menstruation. So these are the 5 basic factors for the normal menstruation to occur and continue. So now coming to the types of amenorrhea, there are two mainly clinical types of amenorrhea. One is the physiological amenorrhea and second one is the pathological amenorrhea. Yes, physiological and pathological. Physiological, as the name itself suggests, it is physiology, means it is a natural thing. So certain stages of women's life, women will not get the cycles, and that is absolutely normal. So that is called as a physiological amenorrhea. Physiological amenorrhea is again divided into two types: primary amenorrhea and the secondary. Primary physiological amenorrhea and the secondary physiological amenorrhea. So what about the primary physiological amenorrhea? See, primary physiological amenorrhea occurs before puberty. That means a girl who has not attained menarche, or the girl who has not attained the age of puberty. So before attaining the age of puberty in the childhood, menstrual cycles won't occur. So menstrual cycles will be absent. So which is absolutely normal. As the such absence of menstruation in the pre-puberty age, you can say pre-puberty age or in the childhood, that is called as physiological primary amenorrhea. Okay, so next is about the secondary physiological amenorrhea. Secondary physiological amenorrhea means in certain stages of woman's life, a woman will not get the cycles, and which is absolutely considered as normal again. Like examples: during pregnancy amenorrhea will be there for whole 9 months, and which is absolutely normal, and it is called as a physiological amenorrhea because she is pregnant. In pregnancy, the main complaint or the chief complaint of pregnancy itself is amenorrhea of how many weeks she has. So this is the thing. Then second, during the lactation, if the woman is lactating, then the lactational amenorrhea will be there. Lactational, which is called as a lactational amenorrhea during the lactating period. And third is following menopause. As after menopause, what happens? There is a lack of follicles, follicle reserve, ovarian reserve decreases. There will not be no follicles, no more follicles are available in the ovary. So hence the menstruation also will not be there. So this is so in these stages the woman will not get the cycles or menstruation. So these are considered as a secondary physiological amenorrheas. So physiological amenorrhea is of two types: primary and secondary. Primary is the only one, that is before puberty, or the girl before attaining puberty is called the primary physiological amenorrhea, and secondary is during pregnancy, during lactation, and after menopause, that is a postmenopausal or following menopause. So next is about the pathological amenorrhea. Pathological amenorrhea is of two types again. One is the concealed and second one is the real pathological amenorrhea is again of two types, which is also called as real or true pathological amenorrhea. It's of two types again, primary and secondary. Primary means the girl who has attained the age of puberty, but after attaining 15 or 16 years of age, she has not attained the menarche yet. Then in such cases it is called as a primary pathological amenorrhea. She is supposed to get her menarche in the puberty age, but she has not attained till 16 years of age also. Then that is called as a primary pathological amenorrhea. Then second is the secondary pathological amenorrhea. That means she had cycles, she started her cycles before, but cycles are not coming regularly, absence of cycles in the later life, then that is called as a secondary pathological amenorrhea. What about the concealed is again one type of pathological amenorrhea. In concealed it is also called as a cryptomenorrhea. See, concealed means hidden, something is there but it is not visible, that is called as concealed one, hidden one. So here what happens, the cycles or the menstruation is occurring normally inside the body, but because of the problem with the outflow tract is unable to come out outside, the blood is unable to come outside. So such a condition is called as a concealed amenorrhea or cryptomenorrhea. The term used for concealed variety is called as cryptomenorrhea. That means menstruation is occurring normal inside, but because of some outflow tract problems, it is unable to, blood is unable to come outside, and this condition is called as cryptomenorrhea, which is not the true or the real pathological amenorrhea type. It is again of two types, congenital and acquired. Congenital is because of the congenital causes like the narrow introitus or some septum, etc. Then acquired is later in the life, if she acquired because following certain procedures or following certain delivery, etc. procedures. If some pathology occurs in the outflow tract, then if the menstruation is not able to come outside, then that is called as a acquired type of cryptomenorrhea or the concealed variety of pathological amenorrhea. So these are the two main types of amenorrhea, physiological and pathological. Okay. So coming to the physiological amenorrhea in detail, before puberty, as you know, before puberty what happens, the pituitary gonadotrophins are not adequate enough to stimulate the ovarian follicles for effective steroidogenesis. Estrogen levels are also not sufficient to cause bleeding from the endometrium, hence the girl won't get the cycles before attaining the puberty. Then during pregnancy what happens, the large amount of estrogen and chorionic gonadotrophins secreted from the trophoblast, they suppresses the pituitary gonadotrophin, they suppress the pituitary gonadotrophins, FSH and LH. So no maturation of the ovarian follicle. So in the pregnancy, during the pregnancy, there will not be any maturation of the ovarian follicles, hence there is no menstruation. Then during lactation what happens, high levels of prolactin inhibits the ovarian response of FSH, no follicular growth, hypoestrogenic state, no menstruation. Okay, so if the patient does not breastfeed her baby, the menstruation returns by the 6th week following delivery in about 40%, and by 12th week in about 80% of the cases. But if the patient breastfeeds her baby, the menstruation may be suspended in about 70% until the baby stops breastfeeding. So here, in a breastfeeding or exclusive breastfeeding type of lactating woman, there are less chances of the menstruation to occur, then that means there are more chances of lactational amenorrhea if the woman is breastfeeding. Then next, following menopause, yes, as I have already mentioned, no more responsive follicles will be available at that age. So ovaries for the gonadotrophins to act, as a result there is cessation of estrogen production from the ovaries with the elevated of the pituitary gonadotrophins, FSH LH will be high, hence no menstruation occurs. So next, about the pathological amenorrhea, in that first is the concealed variety or the cryptomenorrhea. So the definition of cryptomenorrhea is, in cryptomenorrhea there is periodic shedding of the endometrium. See, there is periodic shedding of the endometrium and bleeding, but the menstruation or the menstrual blood fails to come out from the genital tract due to the obstruction in the passage. So here there is periodic shedding of the endometrium and bleeding, but menstrual blood fails to come out from the genital tract due to the obstruction in the passage. So here the main cause is the obstruction in the passage, that's why the blood is unable to come outside. So its causes again of two types, congenital and acquired. Congenital includes imperforate hymen, transverse vaginal septum, atresia of the upper third of the vagina and cervix. Then acquired includes stenosis of the cervix following amputation, deep cauterization and conization, etc. procedures. If for some reason the woman undergoes these procedures, then there are chances of stenosis in the cervix, which may leads to the acquired type of concealed amenorrhea. The next is about the secondary vaginal atresia following the neglected and the difficult vaginal delivery. In such cases also there are chances of the development of the atresia in the vagina, which may again leads to the acquired concealed or the cryptomenorrhea. Then pathology, there is only accumulation of blood in the uterine cavity resulting in the hematometra. So what happens, In the neglected cases, the blood may enter the tube whose femoral end gets blocked, resulting in the distension of the tubes by the blood. Then that is called as the hematosalpinx. So here the pathology is, if the site of obstruction is low down in the vagina, then the accumulated blood results in the hematocarpus. That means what happens, as the passage problem is there, if the obstruction is there in the vagina, then what happens, the blood is unable to come out and it is getting accumulated inside the vagina. And when the blood is getting accumulated in the vagina, it produces a condition called as hematocarpus. It is called as hematocarpus. Then what happens, again and again the same blood is getting collected every month. It moves upwards, it goes upwards. If the obstruction is at the level of cervix, it will produce hematometra. Then what happens, the blood goes upwards into the uterus and it is collected and accumulated inside the uterus, and it produces a condition called as hematometra. Metra means the uterine cavity, hemato means the blood present inside the uterine cavity is called as a hematometra. This condition is called as hematometra. Again what happens, because of the presence of blood, the tubes and the femoral heads of the tubes get closed, and when the blood enters into the tubes, then what happens, it again produces a condition called as the hematosalpinx. Okay, hematosalpinx is nothing but the presence of blood inside the fallopian tubes. If the obstruction is at the level of cervix, it will produce the hematometra and hematosalpinx only, but not produce the hematocarpus. Hematocarpus is not seen if the obstruction is at the higher level, that is at the cervix. But if the obstruction is lower at the vagina, you will find the hematocarpus, hematometra and hematosalpinx. Whereas if it is at the level of cervix, you will find only the hematometra and the hematosalpinx. Hematocarpus produces the marked elongation of the urethra. In that case, the retention of urine will be there. So clinical features, the patient aged about 13 to 15 years, congenital type, complains of the periodic pain on the lower abdominal pain. Hematocarpus is usually associated with the urinary problems to the extent of the retention of urine. See, if the hematocarpus is there, that means if the blood is accumulated inside the vagina and the vagina is distended with the blood, then patient will complain of the urinary complaints because of the retention of urine, because it exerts a pressure on the urethra. Abdominal examination reveals a uniform globular mass in the hypogastrium. Usually the vulval inspection reveals the bulging hymen. Then rectal examination confirms the fullness of the vagina and the uterine mass is seen. So you can go for the vulval inspection. Directly you can inspect the vulva. And next is with the rectal examination. Rectal examination, you will find the fullness of vagina and the uterine mass. And management is, you have to incise the imperforate hymen if that is the cause. Cruciate incision of the hymen and drainage of the pus is to be done, and dilatation of the cervix is to be done in cases of the stenosis conditions. So this is all about the cryptomenorrhea. Next, about the primary amenorrhea. As primary amenorrhea is a type of pathological amenorrhea, primary and secondary. So coming to the primary amenorrhea, definition of primary amenorrhea is a young girl, okay, it's seen in the girls, not in the women's. A young girl who has not yet menstruated by her 16 years of age is having the primary amenorrhea rather than the delayed menarche. So you can call that condition as the primary amenorrhea. If a girl has attained 16 years of age and she has not yet menstruated, then such condition is called as a primary amenorrhea. The normal upper age limit of menarche is 15 years. So we can wait maximum up to the 15 years for a girl to attain menarche. If she has not attained by the end of the 16 years also, then you can call that condition as a case of primary amenorrhea. In view of the lower mean age of menarche, the currently a cutoff value of 14 years in the absence of secondary sexual characteristics and 16 years regardless of the presence of secondary sexual characteristics is being considered. See, you can see in this diagram a congenital absence of vagina. And here in this diagram you can see the Mullerian agenesis with the small uterine knobs, one on either side, and normal ovaries are seen. Cervix and vagina is absent in this case. Coming to the causes of primary amenorrhea, the causes of primary amenorrhea can be classified into 7 main headings. First is the hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Next is the hypergonadotrophic hypogonadism. Then third point is the abnormal chromosomal pattern. Then fourth point is the developmental defects of the genital tract. The next point is the dysfunction of thyroid and adrenal cortex. Next is the metabolic disorders. Next is the systemic illnesses. And the last point is the unresponsive endometrium. So coming to the causes, each cause one by one. First is about the hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Here see the word hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism is here the gonadotrophins are also reduced, and in response to the reduced gonadotrophins, gonads are also not responding properly. That means estrogen progesterone ratio is also less. So those includes the cases like delayed puberty, delayed GnRH pulse activation, etc. case, hypothalamic or pituitary dysfunction in cases of stress, weight loss, exercise induced anorexia nervosa, chronic diseases like tuberculosis can also cause the primary amenorrhea. Then Kalman syndrome, inadequate GnRH pulse secretion leading to reduced FSH and LH. Central nervous system tumors like craniopharyngioma, reduced GnRH secretion and the reduced FSH level can lead to this condition. The next about hypergonadotrophic hypogonadism. See here the problem is with the gonads, because gonadotrophins are normal, FSH and LH secretion is normal, but increased because gonads are not responding. That's why hypergonadotrophins are released in excess quantity. Because gonads are not responding, that's why continuously gonadotrophins are producing so that gonads should respond, but here gonads are not responding. Actually this is the toughest thing to treat, because gonads are not responding. There is a problem with the gonads, not other hormones. See, like this occurs in cases of primary ovarian failure, means ovaries have no more follicles. Resistant ovarian syndrome, when the ovaries don't respond to the hormones. Then galactosemia, that due to premature ovarian failure. Enzyme deficiency like 17 alpha hydroxylase deficiency can leads to this condition. Others like gonadotrophin receptor mutations, etc. cases. Next is about the abnormal chromosomal pattern. See, this is also a very difficult case to treat, because here the problem is with the gonads. A female should have the normal karyotype or the chromosomal pattern, because here the problem is with the chromosomes. So a normal female should have 46 X chromosome, but here in this case she is not normal. You can say she is genetically not a female, because she is suffering from some other conditions like Turner syndrome, 45X only one, or you can say the single X chromosome, and various mosaic varieties like 45X, 46XX, pure gonadal dysgenesis like 46XX or 46XY. Phenotypically female with streak gonads. Gonads are not produced properly, but she looks female from the outside, which is called as phenotypically female, but genotypically she is not female. In such cases, androgen insensitivity syndrome, like in cases of testicular feminization syndrome, 46XY. Partial deletion of the X chromosome, 46XX is there, but deletion of the X chromosome partially, then also it is considered as a abnormal chromosomal pattern. Usually the deletion of the short arm of X chromosome leads to the somatic features similar to that of the Turner syndrome. So next cause is the developmental defects of the genital tract. Everything is normal, but there is a developmental defect in the genital tract, like imperforate hymen, transverse vaginal septum, atresia per third of the vagina and cervix, complete absence of vagina, absence of uterus in MRHK syndrome, etc. Then dysfunction of the thyroid and adrenal cortex like adrenogenital syndrome, cretinism, etc. Metabolic disorders like juvenile diabetes, systemic illnesses like malnutrition and anemia, when she is very much malnourished, anemic, weight loss is there, tuberculosis is there. In such cases, you can say it's because of the systemic illnesses. The last point is unresponsive endometrium, that is congenital uterine synechia, in cases of uterine synechia, tubercular, etc. Next is about the investigation. The basic disorders responsible for the primary amenorrhea almost always have some specific clinical manifestation. The diagnosis and management of the cryptomenorrhea of congenital variety we have already discussed. Only the true primary amenorrhea is dealt here. When to start investigation is no period by 16 years of age in presence of the secondary sexual characteristics. The girl has all the secondary sexual characteristics like development of the breast, pubic hairs, etc. She has attained a good height also, but she's menarche is not attained. In such cases, you can start investigation. Second condition is no period by the age of 14 years in the absence of the growth and development of the secondary sexual characteristics. See, if she has attained 14 years but there is no development of any secondary sexual characteristics, then you can start the investigations early. First, history, clinical examination, special investigations. You have to ask in detail about the history, like medical conditions, other features, medical conditions like genital tuberculosis, diabetes, etc. Other features like abnormal loss or gain, weight gain, etc. Then clinical examination. Here clinical examination is mentioned. Diagnosis of primary amenorrhea based on the clinical examination. First, physical appearance you have to see, secondary sexual characteristics, and the height of a patient. And next is about the normal breast development, normal sexual hairs or pubic hairs, average stature, that is her normal height. Then external genitalia if normals, the internal genitalia absence of vagina and absence of uterus if seen, then you can say that is a case of Mullerian agenesis or Myers-Rokitansky-Kuster syndrome, MRKHS, Myers-Rokitansky-Kuster syndrome. The next, if everything is normal, even internal genitalia are normal, then probable diagnosis will be unresponsive endometrium, maybe because of receptor defect or the uterine synechia. If the breast development is poor, scanty pubic hair, average height, then external genitalia are underdeveloped, means not developed properly, and internal genitalia are underdeveloped, then you can say it is a case of hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Next is she looks tall and lanky, but the external genitalia is not developed properly, internal genitalia are also underdeveloped, then you can say it is a case of primary ovarian failure. The next poor secondary sexual characteristics, stature is short, webbing of the neck, cubitus valgus, then congenital malformation of cardiac, renal and great vessels. Phenotypically female, average height, delayed secondary sexual characteristics, but the external genitalia is normal, but internal genitalia is not normal because she is having the streak gonads, then you can say it is a condition of the Turner syndrome. It is a case of a Turner syndrome. And if the bilateral streak gonads are there, then you can say it is a case of the pure gonadal dysgenesis. The next point is when the normal breast development is seen without areolar pigmentation, scanty pubic or axillary hairs, average height, and the external genitalia, labia or inguinal gonads are seen, and internally short blind vagina, absence of uterus, then you can say it is a case of androgen insensitivity syndrome. Next, normal phenotypically female, average height, externally the labial fusion will be there, labias are fused, enlargement of clitoris, internal genitalia are normal, then you can say it is a case of adrenogenital syndrome. Next, features of hypogonadotrophic hypogonadisms are seen like short stature, mental retardation, obesity, retinitis pigmentosa, and the external genitalia are underdeveloped, internal genitalia are also underdeveloped, then you can say it is a case of cretinism due to hypothyroidism or HPO axis dysfunction, like in cases of Kallmann syndrome, etc. other syndromes. Special investigations in cases of Mullerian agenesis, you can go for ultrasonography, laparoscopy, karyotyping, etc. Findings will be there like uterus is absent, tubes are present, ovaries are absent, ovaries are normal, karyotype is normal 46XX. Then you can say it is a case of Myers-Rokitansky-Kuster syndrome, MRKHS syndrome. Unresponsive endometrium is if you're suspecting, if your probable diagnosis is unresponsive endometrium, then you can go for the progesterone challenge test, or you can also go for HSG, hysteroscopy, hormonal studies. If progesterone challenge test is negative, then you can consider it as a case of unresponsive endometrium, normal uterine cavity, and normal hormonal studies will be there. Then uterine synechia, if you are suspecting any adhesions inside the uterus, then again you can go for the progesterone challenge test, and if you find it is a negative, then you can suspect it. In HSG you will find the honeycomb appearance, and hysteroscopy you can directly visualize the adhesions present in the uterus, then you can say it is a case of uterine synechia. Tuberculosis, first you have to go for the blood examination, ESR will be raised. X-ray chest may have the positive findings of the TB. Montex test for TB is positive. Endometrial biopsy, positive lesions may be detected, then you can say it is a case of tubercular. The next, hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Again, you have to go for the progesterone challenge test here. Usually it is negative, means after giving progesterone also patient there is no withdrawal bleeding, then you can say the progesterone test is negative. Serum gonadotrophins are low, less than 5 mi per unit. Then serum estradiol is also low, less than 20 picogram per ml. Then it is a case of hypogonadotrophic hypogonadism. Next is about the primary ovarian failure. Here investigations karyotype serum karyotype is 46XX, serum estradiol is low, serum gonadotrophins are elevated more than 40 mi per ml. Ovarian biopsies, ovarian small streak gonads, ovarian biopsy is not essential for diagnosis here. Then Turner syndromes, laparoscopically you will find the streak gonads, serum gonadotrophins are high, karyotype is 45X0, 45X0 or 46XX. Then androgen insensitivity syndrome, laparoscopically you will find the uterus is absent, tubes are absent, serum testosterone is equal to the normal males, not the females. Karyotype is 46XY. Here the problem is with the karyotype, it is 46XY instead of 46XX. Gonadal biopsy shows the testicular tissue. Then you can say it is a case of androgen insensitivity syndrome. The next, adrenogenital syndrome, karyotype is 46XX, serum 17 hydroxyprogesterone is elevated, urinary tegnometriol is also elevated. Next is about thyroid dysfunction or hypothyroidism, serum TSH is elevated, T3 T4 levels are lowered. Then diabetes, blood sugar level is elevated. How to perform PCT or progesterone challenge test is you can give administered injection progesterone in oil 75 mg IM, or you can also give the tablet medroxyprogesterone or 10 mg daily, or macronized progesterone 200 mg daily for 10 days. Withdrawal bleeding usually occurs within 10 days if the test is positive. If there is no withdrawal bleeding, then we can say PCT or the progesterone challenge test is negative. So investigations also we have covered. Then next, coming to the management. Coming to the management, the scope of the therapeutic success in the management of the primary amenorrhea is very limited. Success rates are limited because of so many developmental anomalies also. So in cases of developmental anomalies, if developmental anomaly is the cause of primary amenorrhea, like in cases of complete agenesis of vagina, you have to go for a surgery, vaginal reconstruction surgery is the accepted form of treatment. Here what you have to do is you have to create a avascular space between the bladder and the rectum. You have to create an artificial vagina, or vaginoplasty has to be done. The patency is to be maintained by the mold and graft. Commonly used materials for the graft are skin and amniotic membranes. The results are quite satisfactory, so far as the coital act is concerned, ideal time of operation is prior to or soon after the marriage. Next, about the chromosomal abnormalities. In Turner's or other types of gonadal dysgenesis, short-term use of combined estrogen and progesterone is indicated, at least for the development of the breast. The gonads of XY gonadal dysgenesis should be removed for its increased development of seminoma or dysgerminoma. Means if the gonads are ectopic, then there are chances of development of the cancer in the ectopic gonads, so it should be removed out. In androgen insensitivity syndrome, the ectopic gonads are to be removed after the secondary sexual characteristics are well developed, because they may turn into the malignancy. Substitution therapy after gonadotrophy, after gonadectomy is the removal of the gonads. Gonadectomy is indicated to maintain the secondary sexual characteristics. Hormone replacement therapy with the conjugated equine estrogen Premarin 0.625 mg daily is to be given. The next, when the defect is in the HPO axis, patients with a delayed puberty following exclusion of other causes should be consoled and reassured. Otherwise, puberty may be induced using the oral estrogen and progesterone therapy. When there is a severe delay, you can give a combination pills of estrogen and progesterone in cases of delayed puberty cases. Gross defects in the form of adiposogenital dystrophy or the pituitary dwarfism are not amenable to any form of the therapy. In mild disorders, it is possible to induce ovulation and menstruation either by the treatment with gonadotropins or with GnRH analogs. Individuals with isolated gonadotropin deficiency, that is in cases of Kallmann syndrome, can be treated for induction of menstruation or ovulation. Pulsatile administration of GnRH is used for the induction of the ovulation. You can also try with the GnRH therapy, pulsatile GnRH therapy, and estrogen progesterone combined therapy also is given for the menstruation. In cases of the tumors, hypothalamo-pituitary tumors, like in case of craniopharyngioma, which is a tumor present in the brain, it needs surgical excision or the radiotherapy. Team approach involving a gynecologist, endocrinologist, neurosurgeon, and radiotherapist is ideal in that case. The next about the thyroid and adrenal dysfunction. Gross thyroid hypoplasia, like in cases of cretinism, does not respond to the thyroid replacement therapy. However, mild hypothyroidism has very good results with the replacement therapy like thyroxine, etc. Then adrenogenital syndrome with the enlarged clitoris should be treated by the surgical removal of the clitoris, or you can say with the help of a clitoroplasty surgery as early as possible to avoid the psychological problems. Then corticosteroid therapy should be continued for a prolonged period. Corticosteroid replacement therapy is given for 17 alpha hydroxylase deficiency state. Prolactinomas need to be treated with dopamine agonist. The next is about the metabolic and nutritional causes. In cases of diabetes and tuberculosis, are to be treated with anti-diabetic and the anti-tubercular drugs respectively. Correction of anemia and the improvement of the nutrition status may resume menstruation, and even correction of the malabsorption, weight loss, stress, chronic diseases are to be done with when indicated. Then in cases of unresponsive endometrium, usually the uterine synecdoche of the tubercular origin should be treated because of the TB or adhesions. Patient endometrium is unresponsive. Then if it is because of the tubercular origin, then it is to be treated by the anti-tubercular drug supplemented by the adhesiolysis. You can go for the removal of the adhesion, which is called as adhesiolysis, and after adhesiolysis you can insert IUCD, intrauterine contraceptive devices, to prevent the formation of adhesions. Hysteroscopic release of the adhesion using scissors or electrocautery can be done to prevent reoccurrence of adhesion formation. High dose of estrogen and progesterone therapy is given monthly for withdrawal bleed, and there is no known treatment as yet for the congenital unresponsive endometrium. Means when the receptor defect is there, then you cannot treat that case. But if the unresponsive uterus is because of the TB and all, that you can treat. If it is congenitally unresponsive, means there are no receptors present in the endometrium, then you cannot treat such cases. So this is all about the amenorrhea, primary amenorrhea. For the secondary amenorrhea, will continue in the next class. Thank you.